Hey everybody, welcome to another podcast with the Road to 100 presented by Mallard Bay, your best guide and outfitter solutions, Benelli Firearms, best shotguns on the market, Apex Ammunitions, lacrosse boots, keep those feet warm, RW Coolidge, hands down, coolest nostalgic leather and canvas goods a waterfowler could ever want. Sound gear, got to protect that hearing, guys, be smart. Montana Knife Company, you got to eat those birds, guys. No better knife on the market than Montana Knife Company. And SCI, Safari Club International, for all your conservation needs. Those guys do a tremendous job at looking out for the welfare and benefit of hunters and wildlife around the world, and we could not be more grateful.
And in this episode, you'll get to know the host of the Road to 100, myself, Kyle, and Ryan Bassham, and we'll just talk about our starts and beginnings in filmmaking and the waterfowl industry and everything that brought us to this point on the journey for the Road to 100. So stay tuned and enjoy this episode of the Road to 100 podcast. In the heart of every waterfowl hunter, there's a memory where it all began. For us, the waterfowl life started in the southern United States in the flooded timbers and expansive marshland. But as our journey unfolded, the quest for waterfowl led us beyond our home. The passion eventually takes us to different flyways, different countries, and beyond. We discovered that the culture of waterfowl transcends borders. And so, a daring dream took root, a dream to hunt 100 different species of waterfowl across the globe. We wanted to share the story of adventure and encounters with fellow hunters, each sharing the same passion as us. The landscapes will change, the species will vary, but the passion remains the same. One dream, a long road, 100 species. This is the Road to 100.
All right, everybody, here we are, podcast number 1.
Numero uno.
The journey is just kicking off, and if you don't know what that journey is, we're going to tell you about it. So the Road to 100.
Right.
Chaim and I have been dreaming this up for about a year now, a little over a year.
Finally happening.
And no more mystery around it. I think we tell people what the heck we're doing.
Yep.
And tell them who the heck we are and why we're doing this.
Well, it's a little weird, first of all, because in chronological order, we've filmed a couple episodes.
We have.
We just haven't had time in between filming to do editing. So I'm getting caught up on editing. We're rehashing our pilot episode right now. And so we've got an intro for the Road to 100 series. And we're just now, and when we're in the field, we record podcasts as well. So we're basically seasoned vets. Kind of.
Yeah, sort of. But the people don't know that.
And this is, so we may feel a little bit more natural than we probably would with our first ever podcast. But
that's
we've been interviewing some people on our trips with the podcast. And the most common question we get from everybody is, how did you come up with it? And what is the Road to 100?
Right.
So in our first ever podcast that will be released, we're going to cover just that.
Yeah. But I feel like for people to really understand the answers to those questions, we have to give them background on who the heck we are.
Yeah.
And so
that's an important part because, as any story, you need character development. And that's one thing that we don't have a lot of time for our characters and for us as well.
Right.
We're so busy doing the thing, setting up decoys, shooting birds, cleaning birds, driving, flying, all the stuff that you'll see our characters build and friendships build and everything else in this series, but you don't get a lot of personal background right off the bat. So if you just watched the first episode and you were pointed here, you're about to watch the first episode, which you should right now. This will be a great intro to tell you a little bit about Ryan and Kyle, and that's us, obviously, who are Ryan's the guy who's been around the world, and I'm the guy who has hunted a little bit and films a lot. So between the two of us, we've created this series, and we just want to give you a little background, I guess, on us.
Yeah.
So Ryan, kick us off.
Gosh, I got to start? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I jumped on it first so that I wouldn't have to.
I knew what you were doing. All right. So, I feel like, too, a common theme that people will see as we try to tell these unique stories of the individuals that we have as guests from one location to the next and kind of help us build this worldwide story, is we like to start with that background. Like, who are you? Like, how did it all start? And so I guess for me to answer the question that I'm used to asking other people, it all started for me when I was a little kid. I grew up in Northeast Texas, and my dad took me deer hunting. If you grew up in Texas, you probably did a little bit of deer hunting, and so that's kind of where I cut my teeth. And my dad took me out a good bit with my cousins and my uncles, and that's where I kind of fell in love with the outdoors. And for the first, probably 6-7 years that I hunted, I didn't really think much outside of deer hunting, and I was content with that. It was exciting. I loved it. It was an opportunity to kind of get to a piece of family land that had been in our family for generations and enjoy time with my dad. But as I got older, I had an opportunity to go out with a cousin who convinced me that duck hunting was cool. And I didn't think it was very cool until he took me. And so I just remember it was like my first true addiction ever. Like, fell in love, head over heels, standing there in this, mass, like buckbrush flooded smartweed, timber bottom right along the Sulphur River. And man, daylight started to break, birds started to trickle in, and just that sound of wind cutting through the wings, and I was hooked. Yeah. And it was a good challenge. There was a lot to learn, and I loved all the aspects of just what it was. And so from that time forward, I really started spending a lot of time outside of sports. I played baseball and football growing up, but spent a lot of time really, studying waterfowl, studying different places around the world, to hunt other things too. I like to hunt everything. Waterfowl is my favorite. But I had big dreams. And as a middle school kid, as a high schooler, outside of chasing girls around and playing sports, hunting was everything. And so, I kind of learned a little bit about, where some of these birds lived around the world, and never really thought that I'd ever get to go see it, or hunt those birds, or never thought I'd really leave the United States. And so, it was just a pipe dream. But, that's kind of where my initial, addiction to waterfowl hunting and the desire and the passion to go and explore more beyond just a mallard in my backyard, which is still probably my favorite. But now that I've gone and done all these things, I'm like, yeah, that's still my favorite. But yeah, I still had that adventure bug. Like, I wanted to see the world. I wanted to experience new things. I wanted to learn the how, why, what, where, all of that. And all with the thought process as I got older that it would help me become a better hunter, no matter where I am in the world, no matter what I'm hunting. And so that pretty much got me through high school. I think what's unique about my story, my wife and I actually are high school sweethearts. We met in middle school. And this is important for me because it's who I am. But I joined a church when I was 17 years old, and through that process really came closer to Jesus Christ and knew that was going to change the course of my life. And so I made a decision upon graduating high school that I wanted to serve a mission for our church. And so before I went to college, I lived in Ecuador down in South America for 2 years as a missionary. And for that 2 years, I didn't hunt, but I preached the gospel. And that was the most important thing I could have been doing with my life at that time. My testimony of Christ and the gospel is important to me. And, I left kind of thinking my girlfriend at the time wouldn't be waiting around for me. I was at peace with that. I knew I had to go do this. It was important to me to share this happiness that I had found with other people. And so, that's a big part of my story. I can't not tell it. I came home and was fortunate enough to pick up right where we left off. I married my wife, Marissa, 2 months after I got home, and we've got a wonderful family here in Bozeman, Montana. But between, that time of coming home and starting to go to school again, I went to Texas A&M University, got a degree in ag business, which I do nothing with. But it was a good time.
Go Aggies.
While I was at A&M, I started hunting again. I guided a little bit for waterfowl down on the Katy Prairie and Garwood and some of those areas. And I kind of got bit by that adventure bug again. I'd lived in a third world country at this point. So now my my curiosity's really spiked because now I've lived outside the country. And I was like, you know what, this is more obtainable than I thought. And I got very comfortable with being in uncomfortable situations because of those experiences I had while living in Ecuador as a missionary, which hundreds of stories for another day.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what, man, like waterfowl's still my favorite. There's birds all over the world. I want to do this. And so as I started exploring more of that, I started talking to different individuals that had gone and accomplished a lot of great things already and started learning from them. Guys like Pat Pitt, who most people don't know who he is, but the guy's a freaking legend. And he really inspired me to go and see the world through waterfowl hunting. And so that's kind of the turning point for me in college, was starting to figure out, okay, how do I make this dream a reality? And one thing led to another. I got my degree, actually worked in the running shoe industry for a company called Newton Running. You can't tell now, but used to be an athlete. And so I did a lot.
I have seen pictures. I can verify.
Yeah. Under the 70 pounds of fat, there was a skinny athletic guy in there. But, I did a lot of triathlon, endurance running, like ultra running, things like that. But baseball wasn't meant for me. My shoulder blew out, couldn't do that anymore. So I got into endurance sports. But while I was doing that, I started working as a booking agent. My parents own a travel agency. And so it all just kind of, all the variables to the equation were right. I had a passion. My parents are travel agents. And so I got into this booking agency stuff and started helping people book hunts to different places around the world. And my desire was to go and host these trips, to be more than just a guide, which is a lot of fun, but you don't get to hunt much for yourself. And so I started hosting trips as a booking agent, started my own booking agency with my dad as an offshoot of the travel agency that my parents were running. And next thing I knew, I was working in the running shoe industry. I was working as a booking agency. And then I had this opportunity to go and work at Drake Waterfowl. And so at this point in time, like social media had started to become really more popular. Instagram had just started. And I was like, I wanted a cool place to put my photos. There was zero intent outside of just, my wife was like, you should post your photos on there. It's a cool way to keep up with friends and family. I was like, sure, whatever. And so yeah, but all those things I think collectively got me to this point to where about 2013, 14, whatever it was, I was posting a lot of my hunting adventures on social media. I had a business acumen with sales and marketing because of what I'd been doing in my career. And I was also working as a booking agency, traveling around the world hunting. And so I had this unique skill set in my back pocket where I could do the business side of things from a sales and marketing perspective. I'd traveled the world hunting, and I was kind of on the front end of social media and content creation for that time. And so one thing led to another, and I was at Drake Waterfowl, and then I had an opportunity to work at Sitka Gear. Learned a lot of great things with those companies. It was a ton of fun. And then got to go out on my own, do my own thing, which is even more of the dream. Didn't know that was going to be for me, but it was the best thing to ever happen to me, to kind of get pushed out of one dream and into the next. And so it allowed for you and I to meet actually here in Bozeman.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my story in a nutshell. And then from there, I think you should tell your side and then how we came up with this whole Road to 100 idea. But I think all those things that I just explained about myself and, kind of what my background is, it's allowed us to get to this point, at least with the part of this project that I can help with.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is we actually grew up in the same, 40 minutes apart, different timelines, right, but 40 minutes apart in Northeast Texas, which is crazy. And we hunted sort of the same area. You had a hunting hole. I was hunting public. So,
I hunted public too, but I did have a hunting hole.
You had a great, And so I guess I'll start there. Grew up kind of all around Texas. My dad was a coach, so we moved a lot. And my dad's a really creative guy. He did a lot of art stuff in college. He painted, ended up getting his degree in kinesiology, but always loved the arts. Really creative guy. Passed that on to me, fortunately. And so from an early age, I guess I just had this in me, like the desire to create. And I started early on, I think I was like in junior high, and I just had this bug. I wanted one of the early GoPros, and I kind of thought that was too expensive. So instead, I asked my family for this. At a time, Polaroid made this tube camera that was as close to a GoPro, but like I thought affordable. So I didn't ask for too much for Christmas, you know. So I got this thing, and it was so awkward because it's like this tube. It looks like a hot dog, a white hot dog almost, and you put it on the side of your head, and it was the most awful design ever. There was a reason there was a reason those didn't go on past version 1, and GoPro crushed it, and I was like, dang, I probably should have got a GoPro. But I started going around. I was, you know, shooting water moccasins, hopping creeks, just doing kid stuff, you know.
East Texas stuff.
Yeah. And people around here, dude, they don't do snakes. I've realized. And me and my buddies, junior high through high school, we would walk around in these creeks and we'd kill like 30 water moccasins for the guy that owned the ranch. And so that was just kind of like a fun thing we did. And that's how it started. I was showing friends and family like, oh, I killed this many snakes, you know, like, and the cows are clear. They're safe, you know. But that's just kind of how it started. And I would do little edits and bring them back. And it was just a way for me to show my outdoor adventures to family and friends. And it just kind of grew and developed for there. In one of my high school classes, I opted to take an AV class because I heard that it was easy. And that really got me into a deeper level of editing. Audiovisual.
Most people don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. AV. If you have a chance to take that and you're interested in this stuff, take it and learn and I didn't even have any interest at all in editing either. I was friends with this girl who was like a whiz at editing. And I was like, I'm Mr. Big Idea Guy. I don't need to edit. And so we would do these funny skits, and the school loved it. And this school played it every day in the morning. You would basically like grind and do an edit, and then they'd play it. Well, I say every morning. It was like at the end of the week, they would do a recap. And everyone always loved the comedy sketches. Like that's what everyone, I don't want to be like, oh, it was our stuff that was good. It was a bunch of people that did it. It was like SNL, but on a high school level. It was dorky. It was horrible. But awesome. Everyone, and the elementary kids would come up and be like, oh, I saw your Star Wars skit or whatever. And it just like, it makes you feel good. And as an artist, like that's the feeling you crave. You know, nothing you make will ever be good enough, but having people come up to you and say, oh, I liked that. How do I do that? And that just started the creative juice for me. And I didn't really, my dad was a basketball coach. His dad was a basketball coach. And so basketball just runs in the blood. But I popped out and only grew to about 5'7". So obviously I kind of took the hint from God that basketball wasn't in my future.
Point guard for life.
Yeah. So when I capped out at 5'7", sophomore year, I was like, okay, I need to start searching other avenues because the NBA, I can't jump that high. I'm not Spud, so I can't dunk. And so anyways, I got more and more into the audio visual stuff, and I actually went to school where my dad coached and taught at Avenger, and which is also where my grandfather won a basketball championship. And so deep family history there, and it was a small school. So I was playing basketball, and I used the game camera to make this corny don't drink and drive or text and drive. That's what it was. Don't text and drive competition, and it was like a statewide competition. And I didn't know that. My science teacher actually told me that I had to do it for some kind of extra credit or something, because math and science are not my strong suit. So I did this film with a couple of buddies with the game camera and used it as an excuse to skip a few periods, and didn't think anything of it. The science teacher submitted it. Come like a month later, these people show up at our school with a big check, like the big awesome, big checks, and it was like $4,000 or something. And we'd won the statewide competition against like Dallas, like strictly like artist schools and like all these preppy kids, and we'd won. And they're like, so do you have like we usually present this in the auditorium with everyone there. And I was like, I get the call to go to the principal's office, and the principal tells me this, like, we didn't know that you did this. And I was like, I didn't think that we'd win. And so we won, and that was cool. And that's what kind of in my head, I was like, whoa, that was good enough to win something. I can do this for a career. So then I started looking into colleges where I could go in the South, because at the time I didn't want to go anywhere in the North. Just being a proud Southerner, I was like, I don't want to be around Yankees. I just want to stay in my bubble. Hindsight, I wish I would have gone somewhere else, because there isn't strong video schools in the South. But while all this is happening, I am trying to dabble in hunting for myself. no one in my family really hunted. I didn't have anyone to really take me out. I'd been with my grandpa and my dad somewhat for deer. Everyone has shot a whitetail from East Texas. If you're into it, that's not a hard thing to do. So I'd done that, and I was like, that's okay. I don't like sitting in a stand for forever. And so I wanted to start doing waterfowl because I see some of the guys in my school doing it, starting to see some stuff on social media. And I was like, that seems a little bit faster paced. I want to try that. And so I tried it on public land, knowing nothing, got roasted at a few boat ramps for my ghetto setup with a PVC blind with grass that I'd stole from some neighbor and kind of weaved in there. And I was just shooting Passover wood ducks. Like, it was not a good spot. I mean, I'm sky busting. Didn't even know what a choke was. So it's just like shoot 3 shells and just pray to God that something falls. And thank you, Jesus. A few of them fell, and I was like, man, yeah. And I'd scoop them up. And I think at one point I sent you this picture. I shot a spoonbill, and I thought it was just a nuked, like, radioactive mallard. This is how little I knew about anything. So I can't confidently say I didn't break laws at any point during my hunting career. I have no clue.
But you were in Northeast Texas, so it's kind of like...
Yeah. But anyway, so I started doing that, and as my video career advanced and I'm in college for film, I'm running my own film business. I'm getting hit up by some friends from high school who are actually good at duck hunting and want to make hype reels, and they're making their way in their career to be outfitters. And so we're all kind of coming to a head in our careers and trying to get better. And so I'm out with people who actually know what they're doing. I'm like, whoa, you can actually shoot a limit. It's possible. And so we're doing it on public, doing it on private and on leases, and I'm starting to get into it and making films. And so from there, I end up graduating college, and I know that I always knew that I wanted to use film to see the world and adventure. Like, adventure is my thing. Like, that's what I want to do. I love hunting, and I love the places that hunting can take you. And so I'm trying to think about, like, how do I make my video career align with that? Because at the time, I'm just doing commercial type work to pay the bills. And so I'm saying to myself, I want to start applying for jobs anywhere in Alaska, Idaho, and Montana. And I ended up getting a job offer in Montana to come up and be the creative head of this app that ended up never launching, but it was a great experience to be up here in Montana and seeing this world. And I'd fly fished up here before and driven with a buddy. We'd make road trips every summer. So I knew I wanted to be somewhere up here, and I landed up here. And in the office I was working in, Ryan is coming in and out of there, and we kind of knew each other a little bit. And then, refresh my memory here, when did we actually start doing stuff together?
So I think I remember our mutual friend had me watch something that you had produced, and I was like, this is really good, because up to that point in my career, I had helped be involved with Drake's Migration Nation over at Drake Waterfowl, and then I helped co-produce a lot of the short films for Sitka Gear. And I saw your work, and I was like, man, this kid's fighting beneath his weight class. So that piqued my interest to get to know you more, to be quite honest. And I was like, you seemed cool. Like, I knew you were cool and fun to hang out with, but then I was like, oh, he's actually talented too. Yeah. This isn't just like some dude that, our buddy had found out over on Main Street or something. So I think we got to talking there, and at one point we thought about creating our own agency.
Yeah.
And that did not work either.
No.
Not because of you and I, just things didn't work out, and we were pulled in too many different directions. And
which is I think a good thing.
It is.
The further I've gotten in my career, I've realized that, like, if you're an artist, I mean, inevitably you try to convince yourself otherwise just for the money or for whatever, but there's a point if you stick with it long enough that you realize you have to do what you need to do as a creative and have control of your projects, and not like the commercial work and stuff. Like, you're stuck to a script for a time. And I was doing wedding films too at that time. And that is like, if I hear Chris Stapleton one more time, I will lose it. So I was glad to be out of that, but you inevitably find out that, like, you need to be in charge of your creativity.
Right.
And you find outlets when you're working commercial, but inevitably I think where you want to be is painting your own paintings, right?
Definitely.
Like, that's what you don't want to do commission work. You want to do your own thing.
And what you were doing at that time, you weren't really able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think about the same time, I had an opportunity to go and do a project for one of my partners at the time, still is, Benelli. And so we went up to Canada together,
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I would like to bring this guy. He seems like he really knows what he's doing. And that, I think, was the first time we did anything together outside of just hanging out in the office.
Yeah,
and
which was nerve-wracking because neither of us, I mean, we kind of hung out, but then driving all the way to Canada for however many hours.
I mean, that was 7 hours up there and 7 hours back. I was like, am I going to leave this guy in Canada because I can't stand him?
Yeah, and that's when I found out that we were both from Texas. So,
yeah, exactly. We didn't even know where each other were from. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess it just kind of branched from there, and I've been slowly working on my craft and getting into the outdoor industry and the hunting industry and just finding my style too creatively.
For sure.
I think it never stops, but I think I'm finally getting to the point to where if someone was to see my work, they'd know that it was me, which is like that's where you want to be, you know.
'Cause I think I remember when we first started kind of working together, if you want to call it that. We've been more friends than anything.
Yeah.
This is like now we're working together.
Yeah.
After we were friends for a few years,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like you were still trying to find your style, and it's definitely like I would say even with the waterfowl stuff we did a few years ago up till now.
Oh, big change.
Big change.
Yeah.
But it's really cool too.
Yeah.
I think it's hard not to, because I find this inspirational. I hope other people, no matter what they're doing in life right now. So tell us the story about.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that.
This is pretty important because
Yeah.
it's kind of led to where we're at too. So the app didn't work out. The reason you came up to work here, that business decided to close it up.
Yep. And so then
Tell us the story.
as that happened, if y'all don't know, the Bozeman area is super expensive to live in. People in their 30s and 40s are living with roommates still because it's I think what's our median right now? Our median family home is like $800-something thousand.
$850, $900, something like that.
It's not achievable, especially for someone that's, you know, in between jobs. And so to make ends meet when this app stopped paying my checks basically, and I didn't have a job, there was a decision there like, do I go back to what's comfortable and achievable and do commercials and edit to Chris Stapleton and do weddings, or do I stick to where I know I want to be and just grind it out? And the only job that I could get was overnight stocking shelves at Albertsons in Belgrade, which is right next to Bozeman for those of you who don't know. And that was miserable. I hated that. Listened to a lot of music and podcasts, just putting cans on shelves. And I'm, you know, around 16, 17-year-old kids, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe my grandpa was right. Maybe a filmmaking degree was a mistake. And so that was like a kind of a dark time. I remember texting you at some point and being like, dude, this has got to be like, if someone were to make a documentary and follow me, I think I'd end up being the Joker movie because I'm in a dark place right now. I wasn't happy, but I knew. Like, and I did that. I wanted the night shift. I put that on myself because I wanted to be able to film during the day, and I was doing some projects during the day when I could. I wanted that flexibility to be able to stay up for 24 hours and still do what I cared about, or I would have lost my sanity completely. And so I'm doing that for a while, just making myself stay up here, just to pay the bills, to stay up here. And it's totally true what they say, that it gets the darkest and the coldest right before the dawn. And that was 100% true because some projects came together right around there and allowed me to one thing that happened was that the office that I was working in, the reason that you were up there was Peaks Equipment, which is a backcountry hunting company. I did some just free pro bono work and
trying to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, and Ryan kind of went up to the plate for me and kind of said, hey, this guy's actually pretty good. And got my foot in the door there and got on somewhat of a retainer. And from there, I ended up starting to be the camera guy and filming for Ryan Lampers and Brian Call for Gritty. And from there, flash forward to now, the reason I can't remember any of this stuff is because I am hyped up on caffeine all the time because I have like 6 different projects and 8 different edits and my brain is everywhere.
It's been a blur.
Like it is so hectic now. Like I'm at the point to where I have to figure out like, okay, I got to start turning down stuff, which was that a year from now? Like in the past when this happened, like a little bit over a
year and a half, maybe.
Year and a half. At that point I would have said, you're crazy. Like I there's no way I'll get to that point as a creative because it is super hard as a photographer, filmmaker, like whatever, to actually make a living. And to get to a point to where you have to turn down jobs is like, that's where you inevitably want to be.
Right.
And I'm just super grateful that
fast.
life happened the way it did. And you just, I'm just trying to do the best I can to keep up with
and
work
now you live off grid in a cabin in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So immediately, as soon as I had the chance, I loved my roommates. I don't like a roommate situation. I did that in college, and that was like, ooh, because I was an only child growing up like you, and I couldn't wait to get a roommate. It's like the brother I never had, which we just went on a trip to Wisconsin with my roommate. Loved that guy, and he was the first halfway normal dude I roomed with. I'm like, it's you. You're going to be my best friend. And so he ended up just through timing coming on a hunt with us. But I hate living with people. As an only child, you get used to just having your stuff in the fridge. And if there's a mess, it's your mess. And so my decision was the only thing I could afford. They're like, oh, you'll never afford a house in Bozeman. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Even making a decent living now, I can't afford a place in Bozeman. Right. Unless I hit the lottery. I can't buy a house in Bozeman. So the closest thing I could do was buy some land. And we had actually been filming in Africa for a project. And I got back, and I had told my roommates, like, on the way out the door, I'm like, by the way, I'm moving my stuff to a storage unit, and I'm going to go to Africa. And when I get back, I'm not here anymore.
That's right.
So I got back, and I had a piece of land, and that's it.
I forgot about that. You bought the piece of land while we were in Zambia.
Yeah, there was no backup plan. Like the papers went through while we were in Zambia.
That's right.
And we touched down, and like the realization hits me because like, Africa's so fun, and we're seeing a bunch of things, and we like touched down in Montana again. I'm like, ooh, I don't have a place to live. And so Ryan Lampers actually let me use his little camping trailer, and my dad came up, and we had no business building an off-grid home.
But y'all did.
But we did, and it's still standing. Somehow. It's cold right now in Montana with just a fireplace, and the solar panels don't particularly work when it's winter. So I'm figuring all this stuff out while juggling all these projects and, cranking the generator, run my laptop and my hard drives, and I'm editing away, and my feet are cold while I'm editing, and I'm scooting closer to the fire. So, but life's awesome. This is what I wanted. I wouldn't trade that for anything. I love the off-grid lifestyle. I may smell worse now than I have before.
Smell like a stove every once in a while.
Yeah. Stove's better than BO. I kind of smoke myself out sometimes with the fireplace to cover up the sin of not having. So all my water recently froze, and I have no water reservoir. So all my right now, what I had was a bunch of 5-gallon just bottles that I come in, and I have an outdoor shower that I moved indoor, and I'm kind of concerned about the propane smell in the house, but it's been fine so far. Jeez, but we got back from a trip recently. I think it was when we went up to Canada with Cole. We got back and we had a cold snap, and it busted all my 5-gallon. I just didn't think we were going to have a cold snap. So I got to figure out my water situation. It's the priority right now is editing. Showers are like secondary right now. So I'm becoming the smelly hippie artist. So that brings us up to speed. Both of our lives kind of coming to a point.
That's how it came to a point.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy to think about, though, how all of those things had to happen. In both of our lives to those branches to meet and come to this road to 100.
Two dudes from East Texas.
Yeah, meet in Bozeman,
and with similar, aspirations for adventure and it's been really cool. I think too, I think the project that we did together that really kind of kicked off the Road to 100 idea was what we did. We went back to East Texas together. Yep. In the place where, this was like a, fourth generation dairy farm is where I grew up hunting. And we did a film project that was basically along the lines of, it was kind of my story and how I've hunted all over the world now, but the answer is always the same. Anytime somebody asks me, man, if you could hunt anywhere one more time, where would you go? And that's the place. It's where it all started. It's where I fell in love with waterfowl hunting. Yeah. And so in the process of shooting that and talking about it and kind of reliving like all these places I've been to, et cetera, the idea came up of, I think you were asking me some questions about waterfowl species and how many. And so,
because before we left to East Texas, we hopped on a plane, flew down there, filmed this project. Before that, I think that was one of my first times coming to your house. There's Beast.
Beast the duck dog.
Yeah. Which is, anyways, got distracted there. Anyways, we grouped kind of here to make a game plan to go to East Texas, and that was the first time that I was in this room with all of these mounts.
Right. That's right.
And so seeing those for the first time, I'm asking questions about, like, these kind of look crazy. Like, there's an eider, and then there's some things around here that at the time and still I don't know half of these things.
Yeah.
Which, like, I'm really good at one thing, and that's filmmaking. The rest of it's kind of like it's spotty.
Right.
So I haven't had time to deep dive into all these species. But I was looking around this room, and I'm like, man, that's crazy. And then it clicked with me, like, oh, waterfowl's a place that you can live that lifestyle of adventure, and it's not just, you know, the things that you grew up with, and you know, because I thought the only thing to the world was flooded timber and wood duck hunting.
Right.
So to see that kind of opened up was the first time, and then I was like, well, how many birds have you actually shot? And it was, what was the number at the time?
At the time, it would have been 76.
76. And
Worldwide.
you were like, and you were saying like, oh, well,
right.
in my mind, there's like this list of like the 100. And that's what I want to get
That's
to.
always been my goal. I was just,
yeah.
over the last decade of my life, I've just been trying to get to 100 waterfowl species.
And that was the magical number, and like it's official enough for me. So I was like, well, dude, at some
There's
point,
more than that, but that's the goal.
Yeah, that's our goal, and you know, that's our official goal, road to 100. Yep. And so it's become both of our goals. But I just thought at the time, like my creative brain was like, that is road to 100 is a cool name. We need to do something. At the time, we thought that maybe we would do it like, oh, let's follow Ryan's story as he gets those, and it'll be spread out over 10 years or whatever. Yeah. And then your brain with the marketing and money and financials and trip planning kind of were like, no, we're not taking that long. We're going to do this right, and we're going to get sponsors. And that's how Sweden happened. We talked to Mallard Bay, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. Let's make it happen. Yeah. And we did our pilot episodes in Sweden, and since followed up with some awesome sponsors. I mean, we hit up Benelli, who you had a relationship with. First Light came on board. We've got Apex,
RW
Coolidge, Lacrosse, and I think people obviously, like when I heard it, I was like, that's a cool story.
Yeah.
And I think other people are seeing that, and just it's awesome to see. Super thankful for the sponsors that believe in this vision ahead of time. They've seen some of the stuff that I've done.
That's the thing.
They followed your career.
We don't have a product yet. As we sit here doing this podcast, no one's actually seen even episode 1 and what we're trying to accomplish long term. But
which I know how scary that must be from a sponsor's perspective.
Scary.
But yeah, it's a lot of pressure on the editor too. I don't know who he is, but help him. So it's just this fortune has kind of fallen in our laps, and we want to make sure that that's clear. Like, this isn't the old British guy with the monocle, like, I must hunt in every country in the world, and I'm better than everyone. That's not what this is about. We just hit the lotto in our lives, and it happens. That's how it happens. That's how people win Super Bowls. That's how inevitably all things, it's that road that leads you to a certain place. And now we're on the road to 100, and it just happened. We just happen to be the two goofy, lucky guys that one guy can film and one guy knows way too much about birds. And
blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, and danged if we aren't a couple blind squirrels getting super lucky is the way I see it. But, you know, I think something you said too that has become really important for this project, like since we set out, and I've had to wrestle with you a little bit on this one, but I don't want this to be about any one individual.
Right.
I look at this as, you know, the road to 100 is, yes, we're going to show this journey of collecting 100 species around the world. But it's not about a person. It's about the community of worldwide waterfowl hunting. It's about us having a unique opportunity to basically be investigative journalists and hosts and have very interesting guests come with us to each location that we go to and tell the stories of all these unique people that we meet along the way, whether they be guides or outfitters or buddies who have invited us to come and hunt with them. We're inviting some other, you know, guests along the way to share their stories and why they love this world of waterfowl hunting as well. And I think that's what makes it special. It's not about, like you said, one guy or two guys checklisting a bunch of birds. It's so much bigger and more important than that. And hopefully is going to inspire people to follow their dreams, like become a cameraman, chase it, whatever it is that you're interested in, go for it. If it's traveling around and hunting, awesome. If it's starting your own business, awesome. The point is, don't be afraid to go down a road that is hard to navigate and it's going to have bumps. Just get out there and do it. Grit your teeth, bear it, go.
Because at the end of the day, that's what both of us live for. Like, you're following your dream, I'm following my dream. Like, at the end of the day, both of our goals is to have, if one person sees it and is inspired by it and is entertained by it,
right,
that checks both boxes for us. Like, hey, follow your dream, whatever that dream may be. Like, we're just trying to inspire people and tell a great story and meet interesting, cool people along the way and show this adventure in a way that you want to watch and listen along with. And yeah, it is interesting because the initial idea was like, I was like, well, Ryan's got 20 something birds left. Let's just film him do his thing. And that's as the idea developed, you were like, well, you need to be a character. I was like, nope. I don't know. I behind the camera. I go behind the camera
and in front now.
And now it's in front, and people are watching me shoot, which is, like it's a hard. I think it was Logan from Mallard Bay who was kind of making fun of me a little bit because we had a moment in Texas, the Texas episode, which isn't out yet, but it will be. So stay tuned. There's a crane right here looking at me. And they were haunting me in Texas a little bit.
It was a stressful hunt.
Yeah. As a camera guy, my first instinct is to always film first. And so this group of cranes comes in. I'm like, oh, this is sweet. It's going to be a banger day. And everyone like almost limits out right there. Like this huge group comes in. I'm like, sweet. It's one of those days where I can actually relax and hunt. And then not a single crane flew after that. Nope. And so I'm like, ooh, and we only had 2 days in Texas.
Right.
And I'm like,
that was first afternoon.
That was the first afternoon, and we didn't even know at the time if we were going to hunt cranes again.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, oh man, I may not get one, which I'm giving a little bit of the episode away here.
A little bit. That's okay.
But anyways, the pressure comes on me at some point to pull the trigger.
And you haven't shot.
And I haven't shot in a while because I've been behind the camera. And I watch these people shoot the cranes. And then everyone is kind of on the same page, thankfully. And it's me. The only guy standing up in the blind is me. And Logan's like, get him, Kyle. And like, for whatever reason, that shook me. And I may have missed.
You whiffed the first one.
I may have whiffed the first one, but I'm just not used to that pressure, and switching from being behind a viewfinder to being behind a bead is a little challenging. But all that to say, it's one of the challenges in this series is always going to be getting me on a bird with the gun and not the camera. It's a challenge because somebody's got to film it, and we're getting creative with like GoPros and action cams on guns, and because there's still got to be footage, right? Like you can't just be like magically there's a bird that appears in my hand. It's we got to tell some story.
You can be a little brutal on me. I can take an okay photo, but me filming so far has not got us to plan really.
Yeah, we're trying.
I don't pull focus real well.
We're trying to get Ryan to where he can film out of auto mode. If you're filming in auto mode, stop. Because it's not good. It ends up not being great. Especially in waterfowl, things are so fast paced and exposure is so different.
I get it now.
I mean, if you leave the camera to auto exposure, think about it. I mean, you go from inside a pitch black blind to the sun. It's going to be blown out. So by the time that thing adjusts to the exposure, the bird's already on the ground.
Exactly.
So there's endless podcasts I could do about how to dial in your settings, and we will.
More to come on that.
We will do that. So
future.
If you want to learn, that's one of the offshoots of Road to 100. I want to help people get to that point to where they can film birds and be as good as they can be on a budget with limitless budget, like with whatever. And with these situations that we're put in across the world, in the United States, doing the birds here and across the world with different situations, different blinds, it's really interesting. That first day is always so hectic. Ryan just doesn't even be around me when it's the first day and where he's just like, I'm going to let him do his
shoot
thing.
birds until you can get
because I am
right
so
mind space.
frantic because you don't know what you're going into, especially in other countries.
Yeah,
and
for
that's
sure.
a challenging aspect. Not only like it's one thing to be like, I guess I'll just pop up and shoot birds. It's another thing to be like, I'm like 100 yards from people.
I know.
And the foreigners don't understand that I need to be close to these guys, and I'm swapping lenses and doing things. That first day is always stressful, but all of that being said, that gives me an experiences to help teach people, and I can convey that knowledge. I can condense that knowledge for you guys to learn a little bit faster.
I think that's what's going to be kind of cool about the project. Like, not only are we going to show all these different waterfowl hunting scenarios, how and why people do things different culturally in their waterfowl hunting pursuits in different continents, countries, etc., but the opportunity to learn from somebody like yourself, because in my opinion, some of the things that you're doing in, hunting film and editing right now is pretty, dare I say, it's not revolutionary, but it's like, it's innovative for our space right now.
Right.
We haven't seen some of the things in this space that you're going to be doing, which is really cool. And so to be able to learn from somebody like yourself, as well as learn some of these, hunting things that we're going to be doing along the way, as far as blind setup, decoy setup, calling techniques, blah, 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 blah. It's just, it's meant to be educational. It's meant to help people along the way. If you're a brand new hunter, awesome. If you've been doing this for 40 years, awesome. There's something to learn no matter what phase you're in. And so that's what we hope this project can really do.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome journey to follow along with.
What are you looking forward to the most let's bring people up to speed a little bit more. We think this is going to be about a 5-year process. That I've got spreadsheets built out the same as I would for any business and how we're going to achieve this goal. Mm-hmm. And I think it's gonna be about 5 years, potentially 6. But looking at that, and we've got a long road ahead of us here.
Yep.
What are you looking forward to the most, do you think?
So I think my answer has changed over time and over some information that you've given me. So you were telling me before we started this podcast that what part of Australia is it that, because we were worried. We have plans. Is it season 2 or 3?
So for season 2 was the plan to go to Australia.
Yeah. So before you guys know it, we want to be in Australia, and which is just cool because everyone's seen Crocodile Dundee and we love Australians.
Oh yeah.
But we saw it a little bit with COVID, the rights and the restrictions and stuff that those people, those good people over there are getting trampled by their government.
Yeah.
And that's not only with COVID, that's with waterfowl.
Specifically waterfowl.
And I didn't know that, which is bad. Like it's bad that they can restrict that information. We should be shouting this from the rooftops. So we were worried because we were worried from our side that we wouldn't be able to film in Australia because there was a chance there for a while that completely Australia would not allow hunting whatsoever within its borders
for waterfowl
as of the end of 2023 this year.
Correct.
And so there's been good news.
Yeah. So the Northern Territory is definitely staying open. And then, gosh, I can't remember the other province. Shoot, I'm having a brain fart, but that Melbourne area is looking good. We're basically waiting for South Australia, that province, to give the okay. So next month, when this is airing, actually in January. So as you're listening to this, we're going to be still probably anxiously waiting for an answer on this, whether or not Southern Australia as a province will still be able to allow their hunting heritage rights to hunt waterfowl. And so fingers crossed, if that's the case, then we'll probably be going to Australia potentially twice for season 2.
Because the different hunting times and regulations across the provinces are different.
They're different.
You could go at one point and hunt south, but not hunt north just based on regulations.
And totally different hunts, totally different species.
Birds. Yeah.
The whole thing.
So that all tees up my answer, which is Australia 100%, which I had a different answer, I think, a few months ago, but as I've thought about it and I've started editing episodes of this series, meeting people, understanding how this project is going to unfold and how much waterfowl in the places that we go to, and usually there's someone there that grew up there, seeing their story that is just like our story, wherever it is, in this country, in another country, they had that same moment where the wind cut through the wings of the birds and it clicked for them. And it has for generations. Mm-hmm. And to think that a government could take that away from people is outlandish to us as Americans.
For sure.
We like to think that could never happen, but there's battles being fought for people just like us over in Australia right now where it's a real thing. They don't know if they're going to be allowed to continue the heritage that their grandfathers did and their fathers before them. Like they don't even know if that's going to happen next year. It's crazy. It's crazy. And we have to realize that this isn't a battle we want to fight on our home turf.
Right.
It's something we want to take care of.
And you better believe that things like that, the ripple effect around the world is a very serious thing. We already see it in big game hunting, like importation, exportation, legalities that have been squashed over in the UK right now, and restrictions on bringing African animals back into the United States, et cetera, et cetera. To see it happen with waterfowl in Australia, that's scary.
Yeah.
So hopefully a lot of this project will be an awareness piece. I think.
Yeah, that's why I'm so interested from a bigger than me perspective, like telling a story. It's not just about a couple guys hunting.
Right.
This, knowing that something I make could potentially save a country's, perspective on waterfowl, and in turn change some of the rules and regulations that are being written to eradicate hunting in general over in Australia. Like to play any part in that is awesome. Like I feel like there's a lot of pressure, and we're not even for sure going over there, but I'm already thinking like, man, this is a shot for me to make a difference as a creative in a way that I wouldn't have an opportunity to hear. And so I am very excited to do something around Australia and do what I can to bring awareness, teach about the sport, and maybe open it up in a way where non-hunters in Australia will be like, well, I may not like it, but it's not wrong.
Yeah, at least understand.
Yeah, this is a harvest method. This is something that is cultural. This is something that you can't just take away from a country that has had some stuff taken from it in the past, with the natives there and everything.
Absolutely.
Like you just can't take away something out of a culture.
The story of that, we're just talking about one location that we're going to. The story of that location, it's hard not to want to do a deep dive into it right now, but I'm super looking forward to that one too. I mean, I think it's hard for me to answer that question myself. I think it may be a little cheesy, but like for me, it's become about the people. Like I've had the opportunity to go and hunt so many places for different big game animals and waterfowl species, and that's all great. It started out as like, maybe I'll admit, it probably started out a little bit egotistical. I wanted to check the box. I wanted to have that animal in my hands and learn how to hunt them and feel that success. And now it's like, I still enjoy that process. I fell in love with the process, but it has nothing to do, like, there's animals I want to go get and places I want to go see, but it's about the people now. It's about meeting new people, learning from them, having a deeper understanding of, how and why they do what they do, and then being like, this is going to make me a better, well-rounded hunter when I come back home to Montana, whether I'm hunting elk or, Canada geese or whatever, it doesn't matter. It just allows me to be a better person and have, friends worldwide. And so it's become about that for me. But I think what's cool too is, giving some people expectation of, a little bit more of the project. We've kind of solidified. We're chasing 100 species. We're going to have cool guests, meet new people, go to these locations, but what locations? And I think, I don't want to give away all of them.
Yeah.
But, we can maybe at least talk about season 1 and what they can expect, I think.
Yeah. So, do you want to just jump into what we filmed so far?
Let's talk about what we've done so far, because basically we have the first half of season 1 done.
Yeah. So it started out, like I said, with the pilot, which we had Logan Moe, one of the owners of Mallard Bay, who is the title sponsor of the Road to 100 and one of the earliest sponsors to come on board.
Biggest supporter from the beginning.
Yeah,
for sure.
So they've been there, and Logan actually wanted to be a part. So for his business, Mallard Bay, explain a little bit more about Mallard Bay.
Yeah. So I'm an investor and advisor in Mallard Bay and guide tech. And so essentially it's a tech company in the outdoor space. The coolest part of what they do is through guide tech, and it's more of a B2B platform. So if you think about different business needs for a guide or outfitter, whether it be hunting, fishing, doesn't matter. but it's business tools that they can use to support their business. Helps them be a more efficient, more organized business person. Now, the B2C side of that is if you think about, a booking agency meets Airbnb meets e-com store on steroids.
Yeah.
That's the Mallard Bay side of it. And so incredibly unique business model that they've built. Super cool story. These are a bunch of guys out of LSU that graduated like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're just crushing it with this business right now. And I've been super honored to get to work with them and do some consulting. And that's how I met Logan.
Yeah.
And they loved the idea of what we were doing, and all this was kind of happening at the same time.
Yeah. And so that happened right at the perfect time. And Logan wanted to be a part of as many episodes as he could for season 1.
Right.
And obviously running a big tech company is a little bit hard on your time.
Yeah.
And so he's in some of the episodes because I think it was smart of him to start to get that experience, not only being with different guys and outfitters in the States, but seeing how things are done overseas. And
for sure,
I'm sure the game plan is to be global, knowing Logan and and his team. The plan is to be global. So learning a little bit about the way that the world hunts, the way that the U.S. hunts in different areas, it's beneficial. And so he's on a few of our hunts. I think, how many in total is he on? He was with us in Sweden.
So it'll end up being 5 episodes. So Sweden, Canada, West Texas, which is 5 episodes in just those.
Yeah. So for almost half of our episodes in season 1, Logan is there with us, getting hands-on experience and putting that in his business brain and plugging it into Mallard Bay. So that's cool to see. So Logan joined us on a few of those, and so we started out in Sweden. We then went to Canada,
Alberta. Yep.
Alberta, part 1. Alberta, part 2 with Cole Townsend. And then where did we go from there?
And then we went to Amarillo, West Texas, with Toby.
Yep, Toby Rowland.
Cole was down there too, which is fun to kind of reconnect him. And the cool thing, it's been fun. So let me back up. So Sweden, we also had Kevin from RW Coolidge.
Yes, that's
who
right.
has been a friend of mine for years, and another business that I have been fortunate to get to kind of help out with. Super cool products. You'll see them throughout the entirety of.
And the products are growing. We're getting the privilege to test some products.
If you like old nostalgic like leather and like wax canvas goods, like
it's at.
He's got an impressive collection of products he's building. So Kevin was there with us in Sweden, and then we hunted with Cole the first trip in Alberta, and then we went back with our buddy Hunter, who you and I have hunted with a few times. And a friend of mine, Paul Sawyer, who is one of the co-founders of Whitetail Properties, met us up there. Yep. And we hunted with them. Super cool podcast that people can look forward to on that one.
Not only with Paul and Whitetail Properties, but with Hunter. Yeah. So 2 podcasts out of that one. And that's one thing that I didn't expect as a filmmaker. I was like, it's going to be all about the films, but the podcasts have been awesome. Yeah, I think
we didn't explain that. Now I feel like we got to back up again.
Yeah, well, basically, so all of these places that we're going, you're going to see an episode, you're going to see these characters, and one of my biggest grievances with this project was that, man, as a storyteller, you have to build character. You have to develop that character and introduce people, and it's so fast paced. I mean, if you're a waterfowl hunter, that it's you wake up at 4:30, you slam an energy drink or drink as much coffee as you can, eat some powdered donuts, and you hunt, and then you sleep.
In a handful of days,
there's no way to tell a story, and we acknowledged that early on, and so we said, well, we're already going to try to do a podcast. Why not just take some travel headsets with us and bring on these awesome people that we're hunting with? And so that is, we're here in HQ, Road to 100 HQ in Bozeman, but we will be traveling, the traveling podcast. And man, has it been awesome to really, so the story development for these characters and these awesome peoples and these journeys that they've been on, their own waterfowl experiences, crazy guide stories, everything you can think of crammed into a podcast that's just amazing.
For sure.
On every trip.
We've talked about religion. We've talked about freaking drug addiction. I think we've talked about, business failures, business successes, like the highs and lows of the whole roller coaster. And I feel like the learnings and inspiration that come from those, like,
oh man,
hopefully people enjoy them as much as we did in being part of those conversations. So
It's a chance to listen to a podcast in the waterfowl space that truly encompasses everything.
Right.
Like, I mean, not only from a personal level, getting to know people, but a place and a style of hunting that is new to you, maybe.
Right.
I mean, we were recently, so after Texas, we went to Wisconsin. Right. With the Ponders.
Yep. Friends
Gray
of
and
mine
Mike
from a long
Ponder.
time that I've never even hunted with.
Yeah, and
but
that
we've known
was
each other for years.
a great podcast as
So
well. Gray being a champion shooter,
Yeah.
putting us to shame with his
Oh my
shotgun
gosh.
skills.
I feel like I'm pretty handy with a shotgun. I'm pretty handy at killing.
But watching some of that footage,
But
back,
watching him,
Man.
dude,
yeah,
I'm envious.
So,
that
so
kid
we,
is so
I mean,
talented.
we even dove
Man.
into a little bit of sub gauges and how to shoot and when to shoot and what to use.
Right.
So that's another unique thing that we'll be able to show in between episodes is,
Right.
is a little bit of a get to know you for the character, since we don't have time in these episodes to really do a documentary sit down with these people. The chance to get to know those people is here on the Road to
podcast.
100 podcast.
Yeah.
So it works out pretty well.
It's cool.
I
It's
think,
different.
because it's like an hour feature length get
Yeah.
to know you on
Exactly.
these crazy cool people.
Here's the cool hunt.
Yeah.
Here's the species. This is where we were. Cool.
Yeah.
And then deep character dive
Yeah.
with the podcast.
I think it just brings it all full circle. So if you're a fan of either the podcast series or the film series,
Right.
you almost have to listen or watch the other one
Sure.
to really
Get the full-
because if you listen to someone here, you're obviously going to want to see this guy shoot, right? Now at this point you've heard of Grace Ponder and you're like, wow, they're saying he shoots really well. Well, now I got to go watch it, because
watch it,
that
yeah.
dude puts on a master class in a floating
Dude.
wavy layout
Super
boat.
impressive.
Which, man, for my first time, that was rough. I can tell you that takes
tough.
some skill to
tough
be
shooting.
able to do.
No doubt.
So yeah, the whole series will tie together podcast and films pretty seamlessly, and
I think so, too.
I'm very excited about that.
It'll be cool. And I feel like we've got a strong second half for season 1 coming up too. I don't want to go into
Yeah.
too much of it.
That's
but
hush hush right
It's
now.
hush hush. But we've had some ring around the rosy with guests.
Yeah.
So part of what this journey is going to be, just
Yeah.
unfortunate things happen.
Which
and
we've both had experiences with in the production side of
yeah.
television. It just
part of it.
It just is what
Just
it is.
roll with the
you know?
punches. So fingers crossed that we can sub some other really cool people in as well. But I feel like, I think, for those of you that, follow along, I think what you can expect is, some really cool stories to be told, meeting some really cool people, maybe learning about some waterfowl species you didn't know about. We'll probably do some gear reviews, just talking about, what we like, what we don't like.
Yeah.
Take that for whatever you want to take it for. And yeah, it's meant to be a good time. We hope we have a lot of cool engagement. Like, tell us what you think, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like.
Yeah.
This is meant to be a community project.
Yeah. Oh, and don't get me wrong either. There's going to be some pillowcasing close up, slow mo of some birds dying.
If you
So,
want to see some like super talented work from Kayam, definitely tune in.
I don't know about talented. Somebody's shooting the bird. I'm just filming it, but yeah, there's gonna be carnage as well. I just want to throw that
Gonna be
out
some
there.
carnage.
If y'all think this is gonna be the BBC documentary,
No, it's not that.
It's not. It's
not that.
it's a waterfowl series, so it's gonna be awesome. And like you said, we're playing around, tinkering, always trying to stay on the futuristic side of filmmaking. So it's awesome.
So you know what I want to do to wrap this one up?
Oh no.
The same thing that we've been.
I figured. Put me on the spot.
So a trend that that you'll see throughout all the podcasts is at the end with each guest, we're going to ask them 2 questions. First one being, if you could hunt any waterfowl species, what would it be? What's your number 1 bucket list bird that you don't have yet?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second question is, if you could hunt in any location around the world, where would that location be? Somewhere you have not been.
And we wrap every show, every guest with that.
These
and
2 questions.
That's one thing that I've loved hearing the answer to from everybody.
Yeah, everyone's got a little bit different answer, which is really cool. So,
Who's going first, you or me?
do you want me to go first? Since
Sure,
I put you on the spot a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
so for me, number 1 species, to date, I'm at 79. We'll call that unofficial,
Right.
right? So, because Road to 100,
We didn't actually cover that either. So Ryan's obviously shot
it's
a
true.
lot of birds. I've shot a few birds. And we're actually, so the way the project ended up working out, we're going start to finish. You will
Starting
see
at 0.
100 species, and The challenging part, like I said, is going to be getting me those birds. But I think either way, both of us will reach 100 waterfowl species across the world, and you will see each of those birds. That's the goal. Yep. It's not Ryan starting at 79 and me starting at like 20. Right. It's the whole shebang, start to finish. You'll see it. And so that being said, go ahead.
That being said, the one that I personally don't have, and we don't have for the project yet, is the pygmy goose, the Cape pygmy goose from South Africa. Yeah. Really cool, special little bird. Pygmy. If people hear goose and they think something big like some of these guys, but it's actually probably a little bit smaller, or just the same size as a teal. Yeah. Really striking features on it of white, black, and yellowish, and this iridescent green. They're gorgeous. It's not a volume hunt. It is like big game hunting for one little waterfowl species. So that would be my number one bird on my list. Location wise, I think, this changes from week to week. Yeah. I think that I have not been to. I'm going to go with Pakistan. Okay. I think Pakistan, because when I think about all the places I've been, and I think I've been to around 20 something different countries hunting, the depth of richness and culture is the places that I remember the most and were my favorites. Yeah. And what I know about Pakistan, it's dangerous. I get it, whatever. Don't care. But that area actually probably rivals the amount of shooting in Argentina from a volume perspective. A lot of cool species, definitely a super unique culture, et cetera. So I think I'm most excited about that location for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll start with location because I'm still unsure on the species. Location wise, I'm torn between two, but I have to answer for one of them, and I don't know if the project will take us here or not. Regardless of if it does or not, we'll probably end up on a buddy hunt of some sort.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Mongolia.
We're going.
For whatever weird reason, I have this obsession with Mongolia, the Mongolians hunting with eagles, hunting wolves with eagles on miniature pony horseback, like what? Right. And throat singing. I genuinely have a playlist of Mongolian throat singing that I listen to. Like when I get on a plane, when the plane's taking off, that's what I'm listening to, because for whatever reason, it gets me hype. I don't know why. I just love it, and I love the culture aspect of Mongolia, the landscape, everything about it.
So we are going. Well, I'm going. I would like for you to go and film too. Yeah, but I'm going in 2025 to hunt ibexes, so not birds. Hopefully, we'll get there for birds if they reopen it.
Yeah, which we're pending. So hopefully, by the end of this project, they reopen. But maybe we can go for birds.
So maybe we do that Mongolia trip as a detour.
Yeah, we're toying with the idea of Road to 100 detours, to where if we do anything when we're on a project and it goes over and there's a chance to shoot something or do something in that country, whether it be fishing, hunting, whatever, it would be a detour outside of the episode, but something awesome that you guys can watch. Yep. And not only that, but stateside, shooting elk, bear, whatever. We don't just like sleep during the summer and all that stuff. Detours. So there's a big potential for that as this project grows. But we've been talking about that, and I told you make sure my flight doesn't leave for a week after yours does, because I'm gonna stay there and I'm gonna fish in Mongolia for some taimen. That has been big bucket list for me for a long time, and you better be careful, because you may not hear from me. I may throw my phone in the water, and then I don't know what you're gonna do. There's gonna be an empty seat right here. I could
totally see you just not coming home.
I mean, I'm already off grid. It might as well be in a yurt.
It's true. It's not much different. Not much different.
Probably warmer.
Probably so.
But yeah, so Mongolia would be my place. My species, you kind of took mine. I really want one of those pygmy. Just the color on those things.
They're so cool.
Just like the wow factor of the color is, and obviously people don't even know what they are. I didn't before you told me.
Most people don't know what they are.
So you beat me to that one. Since you've done so much worldwide hunting, and I'm still kind of wetting my feet in that area, I'm a little bit behind just in the North American waterfowl. Sure. So I would say that I'm going to give the most common answer that is almost everyone to this point has said, and I'm sure you guys can guess, the king of the North American species,
It's cool,
the
man.
king eider, man.
Grab that thing.
I mean,
Grab this decoy.
yeah.
So
tell us a little bit about who made this guy
yeah,
right
so
here.
Michael Braun, who is going to be one of our, in fact, that's where we're going next. So this is King Eider. This is a hand carved decoy, world champion decoy carver.
Yep.
Super, super cool. This might be one of my most favorite things in this room, but
This is awesome.
it's pretty cool. So King Eiders are found in the Bering Sea, off of St. Paul Island is the most common place you'll get them, but you can also hunt them in Greenland. A little bit more of a,
I'd love to do it in Greenland.
I know, a little bit more of a different adventure. It's kind of new actually. And so anyways, but the King Eider, but got a couple mounted back over here too. So trust me, I'm anxious to go and hunt them again too.
This is one of those birds that, I mean, named king in there for a reason. It's everything about the experience I've heard is awesome, and the people that haven't been want to go. So all of those clues tell me that this should be number one on my list, and it is, I think.
It's an adventure.
Because like you've touched on before, this, like, say this is the dead bird, this would be, it would be a memory, but it would be probably the least on the front of my mind, that the thing that I would think about just on the trips that we've already been on. I forget about the bird. I kind of it's at the back of my mind. The thing that I remember the most is everything that got me to that point, the relationships that I made, the dangerous things that we did to do that. You know, it's the adventure, which is it's always been, it should be that way for everyone. I think
exactly.
It's not about killing something and eating it.
Yeah.
It's just this ingrained thing in our DNA. We have this drive, whether it's in your backyard or in Mongolia, we have this drive for adventure, and that's what it's about. And I think that's why people like this. The people that have been saying you need to go.
Yeah.
Because it's an adventure to get one of these things.
Unlike anything else,
yeah.
all the waterfowl species I've hunted, there's not any other experience that matches that. It's its own unique thing.
And I can't wait to make a film around that. So
sure.
that's why the King Eider is probably
it's a good one to
my
have on
answer
the top.
for this season. Once I mark it off, then I'll have to start thinking about what the next one is, and where that adventure
That's the beauty
awaits.
of it, though. Like, because even at 79, I've still got like something's going to take the place at that number one on the bucket list always. So
and you start to realize that the adventure is calling you. You know?
And that's it too. It's like some of these places that I've been to and that we're going to go to, we would never dream of going to, or even knew it existed. But it's because it's like, okay, well, what are these 100-something birds that we're going to go after? Oh, well, where's that? Where's that? Find a map,
and then you go and you figure it out.
Yeah. So
that's it's going to be a fun ride, and I can't wait for season 1 to actually launch. And at this time, when this podcast releases, will we have dropped episode 1 already, or will this release right before episode 1?
This will drop before episode 1.
Okay, so you guys that are listening, episode 1, Sweden, pilot episode part 1 is about to drop, and we actually just watched it. I've edited part 1.
It's awesome.
And
it's awesome.
It's you're in for a ride. So if you haven't already, subscribed to the YouTube channel. That's where primarily our content is going to go, obviously on socials, but our long form content in these episodes and the podcast will both be on YouTube, and you can listen to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. But you guys make sure to follow along for the journey. If this interests you at all, this is going to be something that you can follow for a long time. This is a story like I haven't seen stories told in the waterfowl industry. I mean, this isn't about a guy that goes in his backyard and hunts. This is about a bunch of people in a bunch of places and the sport itself and everything. So make sure and follow along because it's happening.
Here we go. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.